Behind this unsightly mess is actually a natural landscape. You can see wildflowers in the foreground, some trees in the background. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. So this area we would love to have mowed regularly, but it's actually on a hill. So I scythe it periodically. And you can see the bird habitat. We have one little bird nest up there, but there's a set of trees here that we planted, and I've mulched around them with the cut grass. But the deer really, they eat them up. They really abuse them and disshape them. So the method we're using here is we're actually building a grassland on this slopey area. And this grassland holds this slope in place. There are some erosion elements that you've probably seen on previous videos. But this grass is actually on a slope that's probably a one-to-one slope. And then we have a short terrace. And then another one-to-one slope down to the driveway. Now we could have done a 2-to-1 slope on this hill, but in the past when it was like that and there were trees, we'd actually get mud running across the driveway. There is no mud running across the driveway because of course these basins catch the water, slow it, and spread it. We also, rather than having water go in front of the house, it tends to soak in the ground or go behind the house. Now this grass area is hiding a number of trees that we're trying to keep the deer off of. I could put fences around them, but in a natural habitat, the deer will tend to graze the grass, and they'll use the grass as cover. Sometimes you'll see baby deer sleeping up in here, but we need to keep them away from the trees. So we reduce the cover near the trees and increase the cover where it's more appropriate for them to live. Now these trees are actually on mounds because the original plan was to bring in additional soil, because a stone retaining wall in this area could be a possible solution in the future, or continue to grow it out in grass. This outside edge is supposed to get flail mowed every so often, but I've been excluded from having my flail mower in the city because it's an agricultural implement. But long story short, you'll find catch basins hidden in here. And these catch basins have ground nesting birds, as well as ladybugs, and a lot of other natural habitat. You'll see rock mounds. Here's the birdhouse, for example. Here's a tree that died, so that tree needs to be replaced. And then here's another dogwood. Now I don't cut around the edges of the dogwoods. I don't trim all this. I want to wait till it gets much older before I start trimming that, because you'll see the deer will prune and graze that. And I want to try to keep them off of here. This is actually a fruiting dogwood. So I've got a number of fruiting dogwoods that I'm trying to propagate. And so you can see where the deer have walked through. But ultimately, by cultivating a grassland, we're capturing a large amount of carbon. It is a little bit unsightly, but again, there were trees here previously. But we're capturing a large amount of carbon. The birds are finding an excellent habitat. And then I come through and cut it with a scythe. So it's about chest high, a little bit other than waist high. So it's about time to get out here on a cool morning and start scything. Now, what do I do with the grass after I scythed it? Well, one of our most popular videos is the grass-fed garden. And so this grass becomes fodder for compost. It becomes mulch for the garden. And it becomes so much more. But again, what we've done is we've sequestered carbon in this area. We use it to mulch the trees. The outside edge is actually flowering plants. There, it's a little end of season since it's warm. And I could do better with curb appeal, I admit. But what we're essentially doing is creating an underlaid habitat for our birds, ground nesting birds, for our trees to gain some momentum, and ultimately, I usually came up to get these posts, and ultimately for a natural system. Now again, if you have questions about this or anything else we cover, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, and we implement natural systems, capture carbon, improve natural environments, and we really help that soil and that ground, because by the way, this was all clay. We let that stuff recover. So typically grass, for every foot above ground, there's a foot of root underneath. And the grass blend on here has roots to go 15, 20 feet deep. And it is regular grass. It's a blend of 4 or 5 grasses. And so what we end up with is a system that's holding this hill in place. Now we could flatten the top of the hill off by adding more soil. We could fill these basins. Originally there was going to be a community garden up here, but I wasn't able to put in the permanent fences that are necessary to keep deer out. So that's probably get filled in. But again, those can't get filled in until we know how the basins work. Because again, this is fill. This is a lot of clay. This hill used to come straight down from the top corner there, straight down all the way to the driveway. And we put this terrace here for access, put this terrace here to start planting it out in trees. Eventually, there'll be more tree rows as we work down this hill. And then we'll end up with a system that captures carbon, a system that's wildlife habitat for bees, birds, other natural creatures. You know, you don't get rats and stuff in here. It just doesn't happen. We have enough foxes around here that they'd eat the mice or they eat the rats. And then ultimately we are farming carbon. We are taking it from the atmosphere, putting it in the ground. So again, if you have any questions about this or anything else we cover, I'm going to go ahead and go right down here. Then you want to visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. So you can see the trees are sheltered. And then we have these basins in here to catch water so that the water slows and soaks. See you in the next video.